Is the M4 CS the pick of the BMW M4 range? It sits between the M4 competition and the limited edition track special M4 GTS. It uses some of the GTS's lightweight parts to save 35 kilograms compared to the competition. It's not a limited series model. BMW will build as many as it can over the next 2 years. Its twin-turbo straight-six develops 454 bhp and 442 pounds-foot, 10 bhp and 37 pound-foot more than the M4 competition. It gets to 62 miles per hour in 3.9 seconds and tops out at 174 miles per hour. The price? That's £89,000.
So what do we want the M4 CS to do? What does it need to do in order to be the pick of the M4 range? I think there are two things. Given the cost of it, £89,000, about £30,000 more than a regular M4, I think it's got to capture some of the magic, some of the sense of occasion of the M4 GTS without being so uncompromising. I think it's also got to be much better controlled than a regular M4 in terms of body control, in terms of ride quality, in terms of how it deals with an uneven road. Now, I ran an early M4, a regular M4, for 6 or 7 months. I did more than 10,000 miles in it, and I basically thought it was a really, really good car. Some of my colleagues at the time didn't think it was very good at all. I happened to like it. But even I could see there were a few things about that car that really weren't very good at all. The major one for me was that it was so spiky. It could be such a wild ride, particularly on a bumpy, uneven road, and especially in the wet. So I want this M4 CS to be easier to drive at speed. I want it to feel more predictable. It needs to be much, much better controlled, more drivable, and it needs to capture some of that GTS magic. But before I tell you whether or not BMW has actually achieved those things, I want to park up, stop the engine, and tell you a little bit more about it. First thing to say is, I just think the CS looks really, really cool, particularly in this blue colour, and particularly with these smoky headlights. It's aggressive, it looks really distinctive. This front three-quarter view, I think, is just mega. These headlights are really cool with their LED section. When you switch the car on and those LED sections come on, they look really sharp, really crisp. Same at the back of the car as well. This carbon fibre front splitter is unique to the CS. The GTS had an adjustable item, this one's fixed. Although this car does have the carbon fibre bonnet from the GTS, the lightweight carbon fibre bonnet. Moving around to the side of the car, we've got these spidery gunmetal wheels unique to the CS, 19s at the front, 20s at the rear, wrapped in Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2 tyres. That's a really, really sticky tyre, lifted from the GTS. It's a really good track day tyre. At the rear, we've got this unique to the CS carbon fibre spoiler, the carbon diffuser and the CS badging, and of course the LED rear lights. By the way, why do German cars get these really cool metal white license plates and we in the UK have horrible bright yellow plastic ones? I don't know. Let's have a look inside the car. It's a mix of good and bad in here, I'm afraid. The basic material quality is really good, the build quality is good, and I love the seating position, nice and low, wheel all the way out towards me. I also love the Alcantara steering wheel, it's really nice to hold. I like the CS etched into the dashboard here. But the steering wheel itself is just too fat, it's uncomfortable to hold. It needs to be much, much thinner here. Then we've got the seats, they look cool, they've got lots of support here. But with these sections cut out of them, it means that there's just no lumbar support, which means over a long journey, they're not that comfortable. These seats are actually lifted from the competition. They're not the bucket seats that you get in the M4 GTS. From the GTS though, we do have these unusual, very lightweight door cards. They look very motorsport, they look cool, but I just don't think they work. We've got this very small armrest section here, which is at a funny angle, which means your elbow just sort of slips off. We also don't have an armrest in the middle. That might just be me, but I find that really, really annoying. It means over a long journey, it's just not very comfortable. We've still got all the configurable settings here, from the engine and the drivetrain and throttle response to the suspension and the steering, so you can go from comfy mode all the way up into aggressive Sport Plus mode. This car doesn't have the manually adjustable dampers of the M4 GTS. It still has the electric adaptive dampers from the M4 competition, just retuned for this car. But enough of the boring stuff, let's just get on with it and find out if this M4 CS is any good. The moment you start driving this CS, you feel how different it really is to the standard M4 or even the M4 competition. If you weave it gently like that down the road, you just feel how taut it is, how well tied down and how immediate it is. And that's not the most objective or professional bit of road testing I'll ever do, but there we go, it's true, you can really, really feel it. This is a nice smooth A road, it's not very bumpy at all, it's really quite flat. But even so, I've got the car in the comfort suspension setting because in Sport or in Sport Plus, it just starts to get too jiggly, it gets too fidgety. The steering is also best in comfort mode. If you have it in Sport or Sport Plus, it just gets heavier and it doesn't add anything at all. You actually get more sense of what the car's doing in the comfort steering mode. The chassis feels really, really good. It's a big, big step on from that early M4 that I ran. I have to say, later M4s, M4 competitions as well, have been much, much improved over my early car. But really, fundamentally, the car is basically the same as the competition. What is different are the tyres. We've got these Cup 2 tyres, and the suspension, the adaptive suspension, has been tuned specifically to work with these tyres. So the chassis itself is a bit more focused, it's a little bit stiffer, and you can really feel it. And the grip that you get from these tyres is off the scale. You just feel like you can pile into any corner at any speed and the thing will just grip and go round. It's astonishing. It just means that you've got so much speed down a road. There's just no understeer in this chassis at all, no understeer. It's really well balanced. It's really, really well poised. In the comfort suspension mode, it feels lovely and pliant on this road. And then when we start to throw in a few little crests, a few little yumpy bits, yeah, through there, I know for a fact that that M4 that I had a couple of years ago would have spat me off into one of these trees or into that horse or something. But this thing is just so much better tied down. It just makes it much more fun to drive at high speed. It makes a huge difference. The engine, so we've got more power than the competition, only 10 horsepower, but a bit more torque, 37 pound-foot more torque. Through second, third and fourth gears, it actually feels scary fast. This engine, twin turbo straight six, okay, it doesn't have the soundtrack of a normally aspirated V8, but it's got the performance. It needs about 3,000 RPM on it, and then it starts to shoot you down the road. Throttle response is pretty good. Twin clutch gearbox, no manual option. But the twin clutch gearbox is really, really good, really quick shifts. Gives you the shifts when you want them. It feels really, really good on this smooth, flowing A road. But what about a bumpier, tighter, more challenging little B road? You can see how much more my head is jigging about on this road, much more difficult for a chassis to deal with. I'm still in comfort mode with the dampers. I have to say, the car's coping with it really, really well. It's about at the limit of what this car could deal with. If the road was any bumpier than it is, I don't think you could drive particularly quickly along here, but as it is, it feels pliant, it feels composed, it's really nicely controlled, and then when you stick it into a tighter second gear corner, it's got a really good front axle, holds a really good line, then it feels set in the corner, loads and loads of grip, and then good traction on the exit as well. So it does pull off that trick of being really tightly controlled on a smooth flowing road, and then also being pliant and fluid on a really, really bumpy road. That's a very, very clever trick. There aren't many cars that do that. In many ways, it's a much more difficult car to use every day. These door cards don't have a door pocket in them. Where do I put my wallet? There's no armrest. It's the sort of thing that would annoy you and irritate you on a daily basis. This car has got carbon ceramic brakes. They're not standard. They cost about £6,000, which means if you specify the carbon brakes on your CS, you're spending £95,000. £95,000 on an M4. It's a lot of money. So where does that leave us? I think it is the best M4 that they've done so far. But if you're going to use it every day, I actually think you're better off with the standard car or the competition. But as a car to thrash along a flowing A road or a lumpy, bumpy B road like this one, it is truly, truly brilliant. It doesn't get much better than this. So there we are, the M4 CS. Yes, it is the pick of the M4 range.